50 players, throwing them into tiers, throwing them into rankings. This is going to easily be the toughest video I've ever made. I'm going to try to give you a small piece of analysis on every single one of these guys. We got to get through this quick. Let's first make the easy ranking. Dameon Pierce up there at 1. Before we get to our second guy, though, let me give you a massive thank you. I said that we would get a 24-hour live stream draft marathon going if we hit 90,000 subscribers, because I thought there was no way we were hitting 90,000 subscribers. I thought it was impossible. So I was like, oh, I can say this and we don't have to do this. We may end up hitting 90K. So if you want to see that 24-hour live stream, make sure you go down there, subscribe to the channel, join the flock. If you haven't done so already, fix your life and make sure you drop a like on this. And I am going to respond to at least the first 200 comments on this video at the very minimum. I'm going to try to answer as many as I can. And let's dive into these rankings. And Dameon Pierce at 1, as we already discussed. I mean, dear God, have you... All jokes aside, Jonathan Taylor 1, Christian McCaffrey 2, Austin Eckler 3. We are going to have this as our finalized top tier of guys. And yes, with Jonathan Taylor, we've already talked about him having the highest floor and ceiling at the running back position, really at any position all of fantasy football. With Christian McCaffrey as a ceiling that no player can touch. I mean, if we go back and look at him in 2019, averaging 29 points per game, a running back that can get to a 25% team target share. That's literally unheard of. Austin Eckler is in that top tier now. I have some questions regarding Eckler. I think we see some touchdown regression. I was worried about the addition of Isaiah Spiller and if Austin Eckler would transition to being a running back that instead of getting 60 to 70 touches out of the backfield, he went to getting 50 to 60 as we've historically seen throughout his career. But looking at the reports with Isaiah Spiller, looking like Joshua Kelly, maybe the running back 2 in Los Angeles, combined with the Spiller injury, I think that red flag is now gone. And that's why we can put Austin Eckler up here in tier 1 with these other guys. But let's go down to tier 2. We are going to have Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and Jamar Chase here. I mean, the elite level wide receivers in this year's class. We have Jefferson at 1 simply because A, I mean, he's on pace to be one of the best wide receivers of all time. B, because the wide receiver we had at 5 with Cooper Kupp, who would have easily been the wide receiver 1 going into this upcoming season. We have some questions regarding the Matthew Stafford elbow injury. That's going to be something we have to monitor. And obviously, I'm not panicking by any means. You see that I have Cooper Kupp still as the top 5 player. But I think it's enough to use it as a tiebreaker, as we've already discussed, between him and Justin Jefferson. Jamar Chase at 6. You'll notice with our next ranking as well that I want to go through. I want to bet on the Cincinnati Bengals offense. This is a team that improves their offensive line. Definitely the largest upgrade across the entire NFL this season. And I think it changes their overall game plan from being an offense that has to be slow, where they're not running many plays per game because they're trying to do everything they can to protect Joe Burrow, to now I think that they can speed it up from a pace of play perspective. I think we may see Zach Taylor try to go out there and be the Arizona Cardinals, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Dallas Cowboys, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, the teams that know that they have elite level offenses, so they are trying to run as many plays per game. I think we may get that from Cincinnati this upcoming season, so I think we may see that step forward with Jamar Chase. Now, our 7th player here is going to be Joe Mixon. I know that we have had a million drafts on the live stream. Y'all should know we're drafting every single night on the stream this offseason. Literally, if you're watching this on August 28th or September 5th, whenever you're watching, we're live streaming tonight. You will notice I'm not taking Joe Mixon this high, but that's because we're drafting on Underdog Fantasy. We're on Underdog Fantasy. You can get Joe Mixon in the 2nd round in pretty much every single draft. So usually I pass on him in the 1st, hoping that he makes it back to us in the 2nd. And I am drafting 600, 700 teams on Underdog Fantasy. So I do have to worry about my exposures ever so slightly. And if you don't know Underdog Fantasy, it's best ball. So with best ball, you don't submit a starting lineup on a week-to-week basis. At the same time, you don't have waiver wires. That's how I'm able to draft 600, 700 teams in an offseason over there. And it's a perfect spot if you want to get in an extra league. Maybe you want to get an extra 5, 10 drafts that you don't have to worry about during the season. You can go draft with us in the live stream. And if you go to the link in the description to sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. So it's free for you to try out. And you'll get our 2022 rankings. And you'll get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, which will help you even if you've already had your draft. Just use promo code FLOG, link in the description. But I have to rank Joe Mixon here for casual leagues because you're looking at him as a running back very similar to what we were saying with Jamar Chase. I think he plays in an elite level offense that tries to push the pace of play. If we look at the amount of carries he's had out of his backfield on a per game basis, as well as the target share he's had in his offense over the past 3 years, really, Joe Mixon is that bell cow level running back. I know we all remember the Super Bowl. We all remember the playoff stretch for the Cincinnati Bengals where Mixon was coming off the field on third downs. And trust me, I never want to see that ever again. Please don't show it to me. But he's still getting a 10% target share. It's not like he is a Derrick Henry. Now our next running back, Najee Harris here at 8. Najee Harris is someone that will possibly have the highest snap rate among all running backs this season. And that gives him an incredibly high floor. We also know he's going to be involved as a pass catcher. I think he probably sees a smaller target share this season, given the fact that either Trubisky or Kenny Pickett probably not going to look to check the ball down as often as Ben Roethlisberger did. But I'm willing to bet that this offense actually gets better from where they were last season, because if we look at how bad Ben Roethlisberger was at 39 years old, trust me, I get it. Prime Ben Roethlisberger, even Big Ben 4 years ago, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But 39-year-old Ben Roethlisberger, the only quarterbacks he was better than from an adjusted yards per pass attempt standpoint that were not rookies, Sam Darnold, Jacoby Brissett, Andy Dalton. Like, he was straight up garbage. I think Najee Harris is in a great situation this year. Now, Derrick Henry at 9. With Derrick Henry, if you're playing in a non-PPR format, slide him up. This is for PPR. With Derrick Henry, he gets a massive downgrade with this offensive line. It's been above average over the past 3 seasons. Now PFF has it graded out as the 7th worst offensive line in the NFL. I'm worried about the fact that he's 28 years old. The only other running back that's at least 28 and being drafted inside the top 150 picks in fantasy football drafts, or maybe call it 100 picks, is Cordell Patterson. Like, Derrick Henry's a pure outlier, so I am willing to rank him here at 9. But there are serious red flags, but clearly we saw the ceiling last season. He can be the running back 1 in fantasy. Dalvin Cook at 10. With Dalvin Cook, he's the same as Mixon, same as Najee Harris, same as Derrick Henry. They all have their red flags. They all have the outside case that they are the running back 1 overall. So I think that it's really just whoever you want to draft. This tier, it's you go get your guy. My guy is Joe Mixon. If your guy's Dalvin Cook, it's completely fine. Let's move it down to our 11th player, where we are going to have Travis Kelce. Kelce, someone we've discussed. If you're playing in a shallow redraft league where you start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and a tight end, and only 1 flex, he's even more valuable in that format. Stephon Diggs at 12. You'll see me drafting him higher on the live streams because in the live streams, we're drafting an underdog. We have to start 3 wide receivers, yada, yada, yada. In a casual redraft format, I'm going to move him down to here because I think you can actually get him in the 2nd round in a lot of your leagues. DeAndre Swift going to be at 13. With DeAndre Swift, recently moved him ahead of Aaron Jones, despite me saying Aaron Jones should have been ahead of him all offseason. I have to throw in the towel. I have to take my L here as we hear some reports out of Green Bay saying that looks like A.J. Dillon may have that role in the red zone, which of course is going to be a big red flag. And then we have Aaron Jones at 14. Even if A.J. Dillon has a role, as long as he's not used at the goal line, we should be completely fine with the receiving down production Aaron Jones will have with no Devonta Adams. 15, Saquon Barkley. Here with Saquon Barkley, it's a running back that can get to a 20% team target share. And he's not DeAndre Swift. He's not Aaron. He is a running back that at the same time doesn't have to share his backfield with anyone. There's some uncertainty with how the new coaching staff's going to use him. There's some uncertainty that he was sharing the backfield down the stretch at the end of last season. So I think there is a very wide range of outcomes on a Saquon Barkley, but I could easily see him finishing among those running backs in tier 1. So he has that upside case to be here at 15. And Alvin Kamara, speaking of a running back with upside, I asked this in the live stream the other night. I asked what you thought the chances were that Alvin Kamara ended up getting suspended. Of course, they look way slimmer than what the odds were just say a month ago, but still everybody was around 10 to 25%. And I kind of sit there as well. I think it's unlikely that Kamara sees a suspension this season, but I think it's in the range of outcomes. And because it's in the range of outcomes, I'm going to be unwilling to just go through and throw him up into the tier with Joe Mixon. But let's now move down to our next tier, Devonta Adams at 17. With Adams, yes, we are moving him down dramatically from where we had him last year. I was taking Devonta Adams at 3 overall last year. I was taking Devonta Adams before Ezekiel Elliott. That ended up working out quite well. And I will admit, I was taking Devonta Adams before Derrick Henry, and clearly I got lucky with that. But here, this is a wide receiver that's in a much worse situation. I mean, here in Las Vegas, Devonta Adams is going to have more target competition, and on top of it, he's going to have worse quarterback play. we have to move him down to the middle of the second. And we also have to have CeeDee Lamb here at 18. I think CeeDee Lamb obviously is everyone's favorite breakout candidate this upcoming season. This is definitely an update that we made with those last rankings. That last rankings video, I don't know if I was way too tired as I made it. I don't know what was going on. I put CeeDee Lamb in a laughable range. Y'all called me out in the comment section going, Mason, what's up with this CeeDee Lamb, Devonta Adams separate? Y'all were right. CeeDee Lamb definitely has the elite level ceiling based on the offense he's playing in, based on the opportunity available. We'll have him at 18. 19, Mark Andrews, tied in 1 last year. You are expecting the overall passing volume to go down in Baltimore for this to be a more run-heavy offense. We'll talk about our guy, J.K. Dobbins, in just 1 second. But at the same time, with Mark Andrews, the efficiency should be up with a healthy Lamar Jackson. And then our last player this year is going to be Nick Chubb. With Nick Chubb, I'm finally willing to draft him. It's the cheapest we've ever seen him. He's playing behind an elite offensive line. He's in the same situation he's been over the past 3 years in that committee with Kareem Hunt. But the difference is with Nick Chubb, hell, we may see a top 5 offense in the NFL through the last 6 games of the season. I know it's not likely that Deshaun Watson comes in and makes this team a top 5 offense in the NFL, but it's in the range of outcomes that happens if we look at the historical efficiency of Deshaun Watson compared to pretty much any other NFL quarterback. He's on a Mahomes level. Obviously, that was a long time ago. I don't necessarily say it's guaranteed, but it is a possibility. And now let's move down to our next tier. Leonard Fournette leading us off at 21. Here with Leonard Fournette, here's the running back 6 last season. I understand if you want to have him higher than this. Yes, he should have that role in the receiving game from a quarterback that can't scramble, so his checkdown rate's going to be a lot higher. But I am concerned about the offensive line turnover that we have in Tampa, and I am also concerned about the fact that they bring in the best passing down running back in this year's NFL draft in Rachaad White to potentially take some of those targets away from Leonard Fournette. At 22, we all have a committee running back here in Javonte Williams. With Javonte Williams, this is an option that obviously should, and I repeat, should see the majority of the work in Denver. We don't know what this coaching staff's going to do, though. Last year, they decided to give Melvin Gordon like 55% of the work and give Javonte 45%. I think that we probably see the split in favor of Javonte Williams like 65-35. If it's 70-30, watch out. He's going to finish a lot higher than this, but there is still some uncertainty with the role of Melvin Gordon at this point. At 23, we are going to have Deebo Samuel. This is going to be a lot lower than where Deebo Samuel gets drafted, but I do want to put out just some red flags. I understand he gets a super nice contract, but Trey Lance is not going to let Deebo Samuel have 8 rushing touchdowns again this upcoming season. And also, given Trey Lance's mobility, I don't see him as a check down quarterback like what we had with Jimmy Garoppolo, where with Jimmy Garoppolo, pocket collapsed. He had no option but to check it down to the wide receiver with the lowest average depth of target over the past 3 seasons. With Deebo Samuel, going to be a little bit different with Trey Lance. Now we have Mike Evans at pick 24. With Evans, been dealing with an injury. You have, like we said, the offensive line concerns with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Brady was away from training camp for a while. Godwin's looking like he's healthier. Julio Jones being added in. All reasons why we had to move Mike Evans down to 24. Now let's drop it down to our next tier where we're going to have Tyreek Hill leading us off at 25. With Tyreek Hill, yes, he's playing with the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. I get it. Yes, I heard it from Tyreek Hill. And if you want to say Tua Tagovailoa is not the most accurate quarterback in the NFL, have you caught a pass from him? No, you haven't. Tyreek has. So I think he's the only one qualified to speak on the... obviously, I'm joking. Okay. Bad quarterback. Also, I think some serious target competition with the guy that we really like with Jaylen Waddle a little later on. We have Kyle Pitts at 26. Yes, this is going to be considerably ahead of where you would assume that you had to draft Kyle Pitts. So if you're playing in a casual or redraft format, maybe you try to wait a little bit longer to get Pitts. But if we're looking at the pace that he is on based on his rookie season, literally, if he was a rookie wide receiver last year, we would all be drooling over Kyle. Like, it's absurd that you're getting this player at tight end. It's a very bad situation, but it's a very bad situation for a couple other players in this tier. We're going to have Keenan Allen, 27, someone that it's not a bad situation for, as he should just be that straight up target hog for the Los Angeles Chargers, as we've seen over the past 5 seasons now. I will say, if you're playing in a half PPR format, slide Allen down slightly because we don't necessarily have the elite touchdown upside. And if you're playing in a non-PPR format, move him down a ton. In a non-PPR format, you're going to have to move Keenan Allen down because you're primarily drafting him just for the reception upside he can give you. Now, 28, we are going to have T. Higgins. With Higgins, I understand, yes, we are aggressive across the board with the Cincinnati Bengals, but as I said, I think this team could push the pace of play. I think this offense could surprise a lot of people. I'm willing to be overweight on the Cincinnati Bengals. And T. Higgins was a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 last year anyway. He's going into year 3. I think it's going to be a great spot. We have A.J. Brown at 29. A.J. Brown, I've been on record saying that from a talent perspective, I think you can make an argument that he's a top 5 receiver in the NFL from a raw talent perspective. But at the same time, I think Devonta Smith is incredibly talented. I think Dallas Goedert is incredibly talented. So you have a ton of skill position guys here in Philadelphia in an offense that I know a lot of people want to assume that they're going to turn to be a more pass-happy team with the addition of A.J. Brown. But in reality, we saw them be a rush-first offense last year. And Jalen Hurts doesn't necessarily look like he's going to provide a ton of passing volume in Philadelphia. So I do think we need to be somewhat worried about that. Now, last player in this tier is going to be Josh Allen at 30. With Josh Allen, we know that he can be the quarterback 1 by a wide margin. It's unfair at this point. We'll get to some other quarterbacks in this video, but it's unfair if you grab one of these elite level quarterbacks, how you were able to combine those guys that used to give you a lot of rushing production, like remember a Tyrod Taylor, say 6 years ago, and then also those quarterbacks that can lead the NFL in passing touchdowns, that can lead the NFL in passing yards, like say 6 years ago, Drew Brees. Like it's literally like you take Drew Brees, give him Tyrod Taylor's, and I know this is an outdated comparison, but it's like you combine those two things. You have a quarterback that can be a top 5 option rushing, a top 3 option passing, and that can break fantasy football. Now let's move it down. James Conner, 31. Here with James Conner. The touchdowns are going to come down. 100% the touchdowns will come down in Arizona. Now, at the same time, the receiving usage should go up with no Chase Edmonds. So I think that it kind of balances out. There's some red flags. I don't exactly know who the running back 2 is going to be here between Eno Benjamin and Darrell Williams. Kind of hoping that it's Darrell Williams. But going to 32, we are going to have Travis Etienne. With Etienne, we were calling him discount DeAndre Swift earlier in the offseason. I am more worried now that we have James Robinson in here. With Robinson, what you have to hope for is you have to hope that he plays the Jamal Williams role, where Jamal Williams in Detroit, we know that, yeah, he has touches on a week-to-week basis. He's getting 10 carries between the 20s, but carries between the 20s don't equal fantasy football points, and nobody really cares. And that's the same role that he played back in Green Bay alongside Aaron Jones. Well, Travis Etienne looks like the new Aaron Jones, the new DeAndre Swift. We need to hope that James Robinson plays that Jamal Williams role, as we already discussed. If James Robinson comes out and he ends up with a role in the red zone, things could get ugly for Travis Etienne. Now, our next player, DJ Moore, 33. With DJ Moore, best quarterback play of his career. We've talked about this. His quarterbacks throughout his entire NFL career, 6.05 adjusted yards per pass attempt. That is a bottom 5 quarterback finish every single season. That is laughably bad. He had the worst quarterback in the NFL from an adjusted yards per pass attempt standpoint with Sam Darnold last year. So trust me, I'm not a Baker Mayfield fan, but Baker Mayfield will most likely be the best quarterback that he's ever played with. Now going to our next guy, we're going to have Jaylen Waddle, 34. With Jaylen Waddle, yes, not too far behind Tyreek Hill, and I would not be surprised if Waddle ends up being the wide receiver 1 here. Jaylen Waddle was a great prospect coming out of Alabama. I mean, hell, the Miami Dolphins went out there. They traded like the 13th pick and a future first to go take Jaylen Waddle at 6. Then he posts one of the best rookie wide receiver seasons we've seen over the past 20 years, literally comparing to guys like AJ Green and Julio Jones. If the situation was better, Jaylen Waddle would be a selection inside the top 2 rounds. But because the situation's so gross, bad quarterback play, obviously Tyreek Hill in town, I'm going to have him here as a selection at the 3-4 turn. But in reality, we are going to be way higher than anybody else on Waddle. And one player we're going to be lower than everybody else on, Michael Pittman. If you could draft Michael Pittman at the end of the 3rd, trust me, I would love it. I would get it. I'm with you. But Michael Pittman right now is being drafted as a top 12 wide receiver. He has an ADP of a top 12 option. Last year was the wide receiver 28 on a per game basis. He has added target competition with Alec Pierce, a healthy Paris Campbell, a quarterback upgrade, but I don't expect that 37, 38-year-old Matt Ryan is worlds better than what you had with Carson Wentz last year. So if we're looking at a slight quarterback upgrade, increased target competition, hell, I'm willing to move him from a high-end wide receiver 3 that he was last year to now a high-end wide receiver 2. But to put him as a wide receiver 1 is very aggressive. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get there. Now we have Diontae Johnson at 36 with Diontae Johnson. He was a wide receiver 1 last year. He's the wide receiver 7. Very similar to Keenan Allen. If you're playing in a half PPR format, slide down Diontae Johnson ever so slightly. If you're playing in a full PPR format, this is where he belongs. Now, if we're going down to our next tier, I know we are going to be a lot higher on this next guy. Cam Akers, 37. Yes, I get it. I know we are high on Cam Akers. He was a late first-round pick in high-stakes drafts last year before the torn Achilles. The reason for this, 5-star prospect coming out of high school. Great prospect going into the NFL draft. Dominates the end of his rookie season. Checks every single box we look for, but the torn Achilles, obviously. If we look at the track record of running backs with torn Achilles, not great, especially if you're looking at how Cam Akers returned at the end of last season. It was very bad. So there's serious red flags with Cam Akers that I don't think we can go out there and just completely ignore. So no, we're not going to have him as a round 1 draft pick as where high stakes drafters had him a year ago. But I'll be fine taking him at the beginning of the 4th round. Now we have J.K. Dobbins, also someone at the beginning of the 4th. This will be a running back we have to continue to monitor reports going into this season. I don't even know if we're going to be able to start on week 1. Don't know if we're going to be able to start on week 2. But he should be playing on one of the most run-heavy offenses in the entire NFL. He was very similar to Akers in that 2020 class. Great recruit coming out of high school. 4-star prospect. Goes to Ohio State. Dominates. Elite prospect coming into the NFL draft. Post the number 1 spot. 6 yards per carry at the running back position as a rookie. Checks every single box. 12 months removed from his injury. I'm all in on Dobbins. And then we are going to have Ezekiel Elliott at 39 with Zeke. Slightly concerned about what we have with the offensive line injury in Dallas. On top of this with Ezekiel Elliott, we are seeing that consistent downtrend. Literally since his rookie season, he has posted a worst rushing yards per game mark every single season. I am concerned. There are red flags. This should be an elite level offense. And we know Ezekiel Elliott will play through anything. Now, our last running back in this tier, someone that I wasn't necessarily too in on calling a true league-winning player until now we are seeing his ADP slide, Breez Hall. So with Breez Hall, I know what you're saying in the comment section. Oh my gosh, Mason, don't you know Michael Carter Jr. is the starter? Yeah, trust me, I heard that report. I'm right there with you. I'm looking at everything that you are. But are we drafting Breez Hall for week 1? Are we drafting him for week 2? No. I mean, if we go back and look at league-winning rookie running backs over the past few seasons, Jonathan Taylor, when did he win leagues in 2020? In the second half of the season. Miles Sanders, 2019, when did he win leagues? In 2019, in the second half of the season. You're drafting Breez Hall for the elite level ceiling that he'll have in the second half, not necessarily so you can go out there and get really excited about his week 1 production. Now let's drop it down another tier. This is going to be a very, very large tier here. Buckle up. Herbert, Mahomes, and Lamar all off the board back to back to back. I understand in years past, the ideal strategy, the optimal strategy was let's go through, let's punt quarterback, stream based on matchups. And used to be able to get away with that when quarterbacks really were all about the same. You never had someone that was able to combine rushing upside, even if that rushing upside was just 300, 400 rushing yards in a single season, as well as 6 rushing touchdowns, which both Mahomes and Herbert could get to. Instead, you would have quarterbacks that had no rushing upside, that you were just betting on passing efficiency with. You were trying to find the Peyton Manning 2013 season. So I do not think you can go through and go late round quarterback anymore. I don't think you can go through and just stream the position. I think you have to grab one of these top guys. I like all these players. I could see how they're all the quarterback 1 in fantasy, but at the same time, they are well behind Josh Allen based on what we saw last season. So let me know who you prefer out of this group of guys. And then we did recently move George Kittle ahead of Darren Waller. Kittle going to be at 44. With Waller, I mean, just hasn't been to training camp. This is something that I'm not panicking on. The same time he drops his agent, don't exactly know what that means, but apparently people on Twitter think it's important. And if we're going to be looking at George Kittle, I stand by the fact that from a raw talent perspective, I think that he is arguably the most talented tight end in the NFL. If we look at his yards per route run over the past 3 years, over 3 yards per route run, nobody's getting there. Nobody. Cooper Kupp's not there over the past 3 seasons. George Kittle is on an island. Now, at the same time, he has some serious target competition on a rush-first offense with the combination of Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. So it's a bad situation, but the talent's there. Darren Waller, 45. He does have that increased target competition with Devonta Adams coming over. We're going to have to continue to monitor these reports about Darren Waller missing training camp due to the hamstring. Let's monitor this, but Darren Waller could be the tight end 1 in fantasy. Now, our next option is going to be Mike Williams, a 46. We are lower on Mike Williams than most people. I understand that. With Mike Williams, if the Los Angeles Chargers were to decide to use him as an alpha X wide receiver, as we demonstrated that usage through the first 5 weeks last season, the first 5 weeks they used him as that alpha X, getting targets all over the football field, then hell yes, move Mike Williams way above this. Way above this. But what I'm worried about is if we remove that 5-week sample, you've seen Mike Williams operate as a deep threat in Los Angeles, drawing safety attention away. So you can have Justin Herbert dump the ball off to Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler underneath. So it's going to be very important to look at the average depth of target for Mike Williams through the first month of this season to figure out exactly how they're using him. Now, our next 2 receivers, Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton here at the end of the 4th round. With Jeudy, Sutton, I think that they are appropriately priced if you can get them in this range. But in reality, Sutton never makes it to the end of the 4th. Jeudy does. So for that reason, I draft a lot of Jerry Jeudy instead of Courtland Sutton. I know everybody and their mom's convinced Courtland Sutton's the wide receiver 1 in Denver. But when we've seen Jerry Jeudy and Sutton on the field at the same time, Jeudy has been the wide receiver 1. Now, Hollywood Brown's going to be there at 49. And with Hollywood Brown, I think you can move him to the very top of this tier. Like I said, guys, we make this tier list because, I mean, I could easily see someone making the argument that you want Hollywood Brown at 41, especially if you assume that he has that hot start in an offense that finally wants to throw the ball. You're leaving Baltimore with no DeAndre Hopkins through the first 6 weeks, reuniting with Kyler Murray. I understand the upside case with Hollywood, especially if you think you can sell him high after the first month. But we are going to have him behind some of these other players. And then we'll have Terry McLaurin at 50. With Terry McLaurin, we've been drafting him a decent amount on the live stream as of late. And we've had a lot of people in the live chat saying, Mason, I thought you didn't like Terry McLaurin. No, I didn't like Terry McLaurin when you had to draft him at the beginning of the 3rd round last year because I was so smart. I was drafting Allen Robinson instead. We know how that worked out. But no, with Terry McLaurin, I think that he has finally fallen to a price where, yeah, I'm completely fine drafting him. You have the quarterback upgrade with Carson Wentz coming over. And he's much more reasonable in drafts, so I'll be completely fine drafting Terry McLaurin as a top 50 option given the talent. But thank you so much for checking out the video. I hope we got through this and we're able to help you out. Let me know if you want us to go deeper than this. I don't know how much deeper we could go, my friends. This was a lot. Go down there, drop a like, leave a comment. As I said, I'm going to respond to as many as I can, at least the first 200. And if you want to get in a draft with us tonight, regardless of whenever you're watching this, we will be drafting tonight on Underdog Fantasy. Go sign up. Use promo code FLOCK when you sign up for Underdog. You'll get all our rankings. You'll get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide. You'll get a 100% deposit match, so it's completely free for you. And you can come out here and beat me in some drafts. But thank you again. I appreciate all of you, and I hope I get to see you out with the draft tonight.